All right, guys. Hey, welcome back to our series on creative financing. So today we are going to try to wrap up our subtopic of subject to. Today we're going to talk about once you have the deal, how do you transact it? So how do you get your deal to the closing line? So basically up to this point, Cam, we have covered what subject to is, that it's the ability to go buy a house subject to the existing financing that was already in place without using credentials. Credentials meaning your credit score, your income, your debt to income ratio, going to a traditional bank, any of that stuff is not necessary anymore. We've talked about what those deals could look like for people, like what you're looking for when you're looking to find a subject to deal or whatever. So let's just assume that you have the house now. You have a seller that is willing to let you take over the existing mortgage, and whatever else outside of that is irrelevant, right? Like however else you structure the deal. Number one step is going to be finding a title company that understands this stuff. Sounds super easy, not an easy thing at all. When I got into this, we're in Lima, Ohio. I had contacted at least 3 or 4 different title companies and just been like, hey, I have this deal, but it's subject to blah, blah. They had completely blown me off. Like either just been like, we don't do that, or I don't know what you're talking about. That doesn't sound like something legitimate that we can do. But you should consult an attorney, blah, blah, talk to our attorney. And how I'm like, no, it's real. Like try to explain it. Didn't want to hear it. So I ended up having to go to Columbus through a referral system, essentially finding somebody in Columbus. They taught me how to transact properly. That company was Axis Title, AXXIS. The guy that you need to talk to is Paul. Call Paul at Axis Title. Paul is the man, and tell him that Devin from Lima called or told you to call, and I promise you he will treat you phenomenal.
Paul's about to get blown up.
I hope so. So I get a hold of Paul. Paul's like, oh, yeah, I understand these. Do them all the time. Blah, blah. No big deal. What happens is the title company drafts all the same agreements that you would normally have when you have a regular closing. You're going to have a HUD statement, right? You're going to have your purchase agreement, all the same closing documents. The main thing is you want to, when you are looking at a deal like this, you want to get a purchase agreement signed with the seller.
Before you do this?
Yeah, because the purchase agreement is what makes the deal real. So you can get a regular purchase agreement blank from like usually any realtor in your area. You can look one up. It doesn't have to be ironclad. That's what the title department's for. The title company is going to tell you, you need this, you're missing this document, this, blah, blah, blah. So even if you don't know everything starting off, if you want to have a very smooth transaction, obviously learn everything first. But you can literally start off with just a purchase agreement and a subject to agreement. We can probably even put a link to a blank subject to agreement in the bottom
on Google or something?
Yeah. I have blank ones saved. So
cool.
We can just upload a link to a blank subject to agreement and a blank purchase agreement. Get the seller to agree to the purchase price, all that stuff. Attach your subject to agreement that just says, this is how I'm buying it. Call Paul. Paul's going to tell you, hey, you're missing this, you're missing that. We're going to go do this, yada, yada. That stuff is not important for you right now. What you need to worry about is getting with a title company that understands this, because if you don't, your deal will fall apart. The wrong title company will ruin a deal. I have literally been at closings where they did not allow me to choose the bank because at this point, I wasn't seasoned enough to know that I could only work with certain banks if I wanted to, and tell them we're doing our closing with these people only, this title company only. And I've been at closings where they're like, we're not cutting you that check for $80,000. I'm like, well, what do you mean? They're like, well, because this doesn't state that. I'm like, yes, it does. You just don't understand. And I've had to argue with them, call Paul, and Paul be like, no, you're wrong. And here's why. And they're like, okay, sorry. Here you go.
Wow.
Literally has happened multiple times. So anyways, call Paul. He will let you know anything that you're missing. Another route is there are people called transaction coordinators in real estate. Their only job is once you have a deal, You can hand it off to this person and they will get you all the way through to the closing table.
Oh, wow.
You have to do nothing.
And you just tell them, hey, we're doing subject to on this one?
That's it. Literally all you have to do.
Jeez.
And we can drop a link to some places to find transaction coordinators too in the description or something. But these people just take usually like a set fee. They'll do like $1,500 per deal, or there's some people that'll ask for like 1% of whatever the deal is. Either way, it's worth it. These people are very, very organized and they know how to work with creative financing. So they will work with the mortgage company. They'll work with the title company. They'll work with any real estate agents involved. They'll keep the seller in the loop. They'll keep you in the loop. They'll coordinate any notaries that need to be involved, blah, 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 blah. They'll do everything.
Wow.
And just make it super simple for you.
And you are saying it is worth it.
I 100% think it's worth it.
Okay.
100%.
Just because it's so much running around and just don't know what we're doing, trying to learn.
You don't know. So a lot of this with creative financing is like you have to run into the problem to realize that it's a problem.
Right.
To not run into it the next time. Avoid all that. Like I did that. I went, filed, here's my purchase agreement. Here's my subject to agreement. And they're like, well, you need this and you didn't have that. And I'm like, okay, well, I didn't know. I didn't, whatever. And I had to scramble and then kind of look stupid to the seller. Like, I don't know what I'm doing.
It's true too. Yeah.
Yeah. But I was like, well, I just want to learn it. So I went the hard route. Then I started using transaction coordinators as we got larger. And I was like, oh, I should have just done this the whole time.
Because it's a waste of time to some degree.
Yeah. And it's not a bad thing to know. But like I said in one of the first ones of these that we did, those purchase agreements and subject to agreements and like a novation agreement or just even something as simple as a HUD statement, learning how all those documents work is a good thing to know because it tells you this is the step-by-step process of how to sell and move real estate. So it's not a bad thing to know by any means. But if you want to move quick, and right now we are talking to the people that are just like, here's information, I want to go act, right?
Right.
Use a transaction coordinator. Build it into your deal. Just know that you're going to spend, say, $1,500, $2,000 for somebody to handle your deal for you. That's it. But when you're dealing with subject to, a couple big pieces to get this to the finish line is when you're selling the idea of subject to somebody and you're saying, let me take over your mortgage for 20 years. A lot of people are going to be like, well, what the hell? What if I want to go buy a house in 5 years? Like, I don't want to have to be stuck with my debt to income tied up in this house.
Right.
One way around that, and a thing that you want to do in general, because it covers everybody's tails, is work with a company that's called a loan servicer. Loan servicing companies, West Star, I believe is the name of the one that we use. They take the payment. So when you make your monthly payment, you pay it to the loan servicer. They pay it to the mortgage company, and they give a receipt to the seller saying that it's been paid. Why that's so important is one, obviously you have a paper trail of payments made and blah, 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 blah. But it gives the seller that's still that's accountable for that mortgage, it gives them a receipt showing that they're not the ones servicing that debt. So they're able to show their bank, hey, this is shown as a debt for me, but it's not. It's actually an asset. It makes me money. Here's all the receipts of all the payments from a loan servicing company that verifies payment, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
So that's a big piece that a lot of people miss is having that loan servicer in place, because at the end of your deal, now at this point, you're just trying to make sure that everything flows properly and you follow through on all your promises, right?
Mm-hmm.
So set up your loan servicer. Another thing is when you're dealing with subject to, it's not like you can obviously have inspections and all of that kind of stuff before you close the deal. But usually in a subject to type of deal, you're not having the normal closing process of inspection, negotiation, close the deal, 30 days to closing, blah, blah. You can structure this however you want to. You could make it 1 week, you're out, I'm in, deal's done, blah, blah, transfer, all that stuff. When you have a title company that is taking care of all of the closing stuff for you, they're going to do the transfer of the deed. They're going to put the house out of the seller's name and into your name, and you are going to own that property, whether it happens in 7 days, 14 days, 30 days, the seller is just on the mortgage. They are not on the deed anymore.
Wow. Okay. Got it. Got it.
Does that make sense?
Yes. So, I had a question about halfway through.
Just stop me next time.
Yeah.
Just halt.
Yeah. I guess we can go on, but, man, I'm blanking on that one. It was a good question, but anyway, continue.
Was it about the loan servicer?
Oh, it was about title companies. So that you said the deal that you can customize, right? Whether they're out of the house in 14 or 30 or 60 or whatever days. Is that in the papers that you print out that is going to be in the description of this video?
Oh, yeah.
So you make those.
Yep.
You say, okay, what do you want to be out of the house by 30? Is 30 okay? And then you write that in the thing.
If you want to make it 4 months, whatever you want to make it.
And then you give those with all the other stipulations. You give those to the title company and they reinforce it.
Marching orders for the title company.
Gotcha.
And they just make sure that all the pieces are there to legally make this conveyance of this property from one person to another.
Got it.
Okay.
Got it.
Another piece of transacting this is finding an attorney as soon as you are able to afford one, even if you are only working with an attorney that is charging you like they're not on a retainer, they're just charging you per hour, per document that they're helping you with, per closing, whatever. Find an attorney that understands this stuff and put them on your team, because so many people don't understand this. And you will literally have title agents that have been doing this for 20 years, realtors that have been doing this for 40 years, like investors that have been around the game forever, that will try to tell you, no, you can't do that. No, you can't do this. You'll also have sellers that will explain to somebody, hey, I sold my house this way. And then their friends are like, oh, you're an idiot because I heard on YouTube that they have an acceleration clause and there's this due on sale clause and blah. And then they'll freak out and be like, oh my God, like you didn't tell me. Just get an attorney on your team as fast as possible, because they're going to help you, one, explain to the seller in a way better term than you probably can what exactly is happening and who is liable for what and all that stuff. But it just protects everybody, and it's going to save you a ton of headaches down the road. Tons.
So at what point does the attorney get involved?
Usually your attorney will look over. So like if I provide you a blank purchase agreement, subject to agreement, right? That is enough to get you going. You're going to take that to a title company in your state or your city, whatever, and they're probably going to be like, well, you need this little piece added and we need to adjust this, whatever. Your attorney will get your documents to where, I can use this for a subject to, and it's going to work and everything's going to transact properly. Because they're their marching orders for your title company, they're going to make a way smoother process.
Gotcha.
For each of your deals. So that's where I would first get them involved, is have them look over all your documents and say, write me up everything that I need.
So is this pre-signed or signed?
Yeah. Once you can afford one.
So here are the blank documents. Am I on the right path, attorney? Right. And then
make it better.
Do X, Y, Z, and then get the signature, then go to the title company. Okay. Then you're rolling. Once you're at the title company, they're going to set a closing date. You're going to go there. You're going to sign. Deal's done. Title company sends all the documents to your local municipalities. They convey over the property. Done deal. Or the transaction coordinator. Now, here's where you can essentially streamline this process and make it as simple as possible. Find a transaction coordinator that is willing to work on a per deal basis, that they just want like a commission on each deal when it closes. Not paid up front. None of that. When you get this to the finish line, you get paid. Incentivize it.
Yes. Find a title company that understands how this stuff works. They're only going to get paid at the closing. No cost up front. Find an attorney that is willing to just charge you a one-time fee to look over all your documents and get them together. You should be able to get that for like $500-600. Get your documents together. And then when you get a deal, get the deal signed on the documents that your attorney prepared. Get it to your transaction coordinator. Have your transaction coordinator talk to your attorney beforehand so she knows This is why you have this in these agreements, blah, 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 because those are her marching orders. She then goes and gives those marching orders to the title company. And if they are all on the same page, you can move. We moved 18 deals in 12 months. Not a ton, but that was in like our first full year, I think, because we had all those pieces in place. So we were just cranking stuff, dude.
Just moving.
Cranking stuff. Like when I started off, I was like, oh, I don't need a transaction coordinator, blah, blah. And then once we were moving a decent amount and I put all the pieces in place, it moved so fast. And the last thing that you want to do as an investor, when people get into real estate, they're not in it because they want to get stuck in the nuts and bolts of transacting deals and writing up contracts. You just want to go buy property and make money. This gets you there a lot faster.
Gotcha. Seems like with a lot less stress and pain and agony and
way more.
And on top of that, people are probably doing something else to make money.
Way
probably
more.
Not someone's main gig, or at least probably the majority, you know?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have one last tool.
Okay. One last tool.
This tool has been the biggest game changer for me in creative financing as a whole.
Best for last, eh?
Yeah. Not just subject to. When somebody sells you a property, right?
Mm-hmm.
The main concern that they're going to think if they're getting paid over time is what happens if you don't pay? How do I get my house back if you stop paying me? You can have it's called a couple different things in different states, but essentially you can have a deed that is called a deed in lieu. What a deed in lieu means is it is a deed in lieu of foreclosure. If you go buy a house from a bank right now and you stop paying the bank does what? They foreclose on your house. That foreclosure process takes a long time. They have to go through the court system and blah, blah, blah. They have to have an auction. All that stuff has to happen for them to come take their house back.
Mm-hmm.
What a deed in lieu does is you're the seller. I'm the buyer. You say, these are my terms. I agree to them. We sign. I start making payments. We signed a deed in lieu, which is me signing your house back over to you at the closing table when we first do the deal. But that deed goes to a third-party attorney that neither of us are, have any relation to. And they hold what's called a deed in lieu. And it is me transferring your property back to you. So as soon as this attorney gives you this document, you can take it up to your local court and say, here you go. This is me signing, getting my house back. What that does is as soon as you trigger that says, hey, Mr. Third-Party Attorney, Devin didn't make his payment like he said he was going to. I need that deed in lieu. And you prove that to the attorney. Look, there's no payment. He says, yep, here you go. And he goes up there and files it for you.
Wow. Okay.
House is back.
Okay. So
it avoids the foreclosure process. But that attorney has steps set in stone with that says, after 30 years, this deed in lieu goes away. Once the payment's made whole, this goes away, blah, blah, blah. It's very good protection for your seller.
Right. Which seems very smart. So at what point would you bring him on? And do you need to pay him?
Who?
The third party attorney.
Yeah. So the third party attorney, usually you're talking very minimal, couple $100, because all they're literally doing is taking the document and keeping it for safekeeping.
Right.
That's it. They don't have to do any work. They don't have to do anything. So usually it's a very, very small amount of money. But it is the best closing tool that I have ever had. That's people's biggest objection. Well, what happens if you don't pay me? I'm like, then I paid your house down for 5 years and you get your house back. You don't have to jump through any hoops to do it.
That's fair. Yeah.
You don't have to take me to court and, go through the headache of trying to
full protection in a way. Mm-hmm. They can't sue you or anything, or
keep it in your back pocket and only use it as a closing tool.
Okay. Had another question. Gosh, so many questions, and I'm like focused dead in. So the money of the attorney and deed in lieu. I'm blanking, but
good. Honestly, I mean, there's not a ton when it comes to transacting. The biggest thing is knowing who you need to contact and what they're going to do to help get you to the finish line. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people don't know transaction coordinators exist.
Right. I mean, I didn't.
They're a cheat code for the game. Just go hire one.
So how much do those like at the end of a day, let's say it's pick an average price of a house.
Mm-hmm.
What do all these fees total up to in percentage to the average house?
Usually you're going to look at it like on the purchase price of a house, you're going to pay around 10% total off the top, not just in these fees. That's your realtor fees, closing costs, blah, 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 blah. Usually they're going to account for 2% for closing costs in general is what a decent number is 2%.
Okay.
I use 10% cross that covers everything that I'm expecting to pay.
Gotcha.
Legal, transaction, all that stuff.
So just another question here that's still on my mind, and we might have covered it in the past episode, but if I still have the question, I'm sure someone else does. If they want, like, why is this beneficial for someone? And this is to give us ammunition for the field, if you know what I'm saying. If someone wants the money, like all the money up front now, how can we work subject to be like attractive to them? You know what I mean? Like, because I know some people are probably just like, I actually can't, I have to have all the money now. Like I can't do partial, like I got to get it all up front now because I'm making a big move or something like that, right? I understand that. But for the people who are kind of in limbo, who haven't decided yet, and maybe they, I mean, I guess it's not our target audience for
it can be
buying for those people. But
the thing with creative financing is there is a deal to be made on every single situation. It's just whether or not you can find the tool that fits the right situation.
So we still got more tools to cover,
tons,
and more.
We're still
more episodes to make.
Yeah. So, we're still in one tool right now.
Yeah, fair.
But if somebody needs all their money up front in a traditional sale, and that's the only thing, most of the time they think they need that. And when you really start breaking it down as far as tax implications, do you actually have to sell this to go buy another house? Is there another route? Blah, blah, blah. Usually not all those people actually have to sell right now.
Right.
But either way, even if they did, then they're not the right fit for this. And it's not going to be a fit for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But what's made subject to the sexiest to sellers, essentially, is the fact that I can let them structure terms that make sense for them. As long as it makes sense for me, I don't care. So they might have their house listed at $150,000. I might be able to come in there and be like, yeah, $175,000 sounds great, because I only care about the cash flow. One of my biggest sentences that I say to sellers when I'm looking at subject to is, don't you want to squeeze the absolute most out of this house that you possibly can? Well, the best way to do that is to do it over time. Because nobody's going to come approach you and say, I'll give you 175 cash right now. It's not going to happen. But we can structure a deal to where as long as I can cash flow it every month and there's enough money left on the bone, or meat left on the bone for me, I don't care if I'm paying you a little bit more on the purchase price, because I'm getting to cash flow every month leading up to that.
Right.
So
that makes sense.
That's the biggest thing, is just telling them, like, you're going to get the most out of this house that you possibly can. And the other sentence that I say to them all the time is, who makes the most money in real estate? Banks. Banks make the most money in real estate. This puts you in the position of a bank. You now get to be the bank.
It's true. I'm going to write that down real quick.
Yeah. When you go sell your house and I sell my house and we both get loans, the bank makes money, and we both think we're making money when they're really the ones making the money. So
I have caught word of some land being sold out. It's rumored to be out by Shawnee and Shawnee Road and Fort Amanda. Something like 14 acres or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm in no position to own 14 acres of land.
Right.
But tell me if I'm on the right thinking, at least.
Okay.
Do you think it would be possible to set up like a, I don't even know what you'd call it, like a multi-phased plan to where I buy maybe 2 acres with the option of buying the other 12, and then on those 2 acres do a subject to deal? Or do you think does land go that way? Could you buy land with subject to?
You can buy a car with subject to.
Sure. Okay.
The biggest question is there debt on that land now?
That they need to pay off.
Yeah. Like, do they have a mortgage on that land? Because
that's the
only thing that would be subject to the existing financing. Right. Don't leave that piece out. Because if not, you're essentially just talking about like a land contract.
Oh, a land contract's even simpler then?
Yeah. Land contract just means
because they already own
the property. Yeah, there's no debt. Here's the Cam. This so might stupid. And honestly, this might but if you have that question, other people have that question.
Sure. I mean,
this honestly might clear a lot of things up for you.
Sure.
The question that you were about to ask was, could I structure a deal to where I buy 2 now, I buy 2 later, and then, on this 2, maybe I go sell it to somebody else on like subject 2 and this and that. Could I piece whatever together? The real question is, who could tell you that you can't?
It's fair. That's fair.
That's what creative financing is.
I guess
you take out the people that tell you that you can't, because the deal is made between me and you. If I want to say, I'll sell you the 14 acres and every year you give me a duck and then you drop me off a candle on my front porch and that's our agreement, then that's our agreement. Like,
right.
Then nobody can tell us that we can't.
Right.
And that's where creative financing flips the switch for a lot of people. Is it's just the tools to figure out that you don't have to play the traditional game.
Huh.
You can make the deal however you want. And that's why I was saying, when you start putting this tool mixed with that tool and this tool and you start combining them, it gets so powerful that it would have to be a very, very unrealistic buyer for me to be able to walk into a situation and there not be some type of deal to be made.
Gotcha.
Even if I'm not the buyer for the deal, there's a deal to be made.
Yeah.
Like, because we have all the tools.
The weapon is knowledge.
Yeah.
More knowledge about the tools. So that's kind of interesting. Would you be opposed to doing, I mean, I don't know what more there is to a land contract, but would you be
land
opposed?
Flipping is a whole nother thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So that ties in with land contract as well?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was going to, if that's another tool, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, that's going to be another series in creative financing.
Mm-hmm.
So stay tuned. But how many episodes do you think that's going to be? I mean, it's
well, and honestly, simple. All of these tools, so there's like seven tools at least that I can think of off the top of my head. Each one of them could have 3 episodes if we wanted them to, of what they are, what they look like, how to get them, what they are, what they look like, how to get them.
That's fun. Yeah. I mean, I like that.
I mean, but honestly, once you wrap your head around what creative financing is, you don't need the breakdown of all those. You just need to know what the tools are and how to use them.
Sure.
That's it.
Right.
Once you understand that, it's not playing the regular game.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get that, it's what tool, how do I need to use it?
Well, I think that sums it up.
What were you going to ask though? You said, would I be interested in? Were you going to ask like doing that land contract type of deal? Like, would that be a smart deal to do?
Would it be attractive for the seller? Like I'm trying to pose the most sexy like offer that I can, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I want the thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't know, because when you start like breaking down things and making new equations on how you're going to pay for it, it kind of seems to turn me off because it gets a little confusing a little bit. But
that's why you have to make it super, super simple.
Super simple.
Super simple.
But I mean, I guess this is kind of like the next series is what's a land contract? How does it work?
Mm-hmm.
Is it just like subject to, but instead you're paying only the...
Well, you're only paying the seller.
Okay. We'll just save it for next episode. Then.
We can. And I think the next episode, let's just jump into what's all the tools and what are they specifically?
That's fair.
What I was going to say though was, one, land is even easier to work creative financing around, like for sure. But a big thing that everybody needs to understand is we are here talking to you about the nitty-gritty details of creative financing. Yeah. Sellers don't give a shit about the nitty-gritty details, and they don't care about the big words that you know. To me, the dumbest thing that you can do when you go talk to a seller, and I think why I've been so successful on closing on creative financing deals, is I make it sound like it is the easiest thing in the world, that it is even easier than listing with an agent and selling it on the market. When you start saying things like deed in lieu of foreclosure and, I'm going to work with a transaction coordinator and your debt to income will be this, and you're instantly going to turn them off. Just like you just said, when I start making it too complex, it sounds like it's just too confusing and blah, 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 blah. If you went to that guy and said, how much are you asking for that land? And he said $100,000. You're like, like, I would love to pay you $100,000. Is there any chance that we could figure out how you get $100,000 and I get like some type of terms that make sense for me? That's it. That's the whole conversation. As soon as they say, well, yeah, I mean, what type of terms? It's just, I don't know. Let's figure them out. And then we're working together and I'm not pitching you something.
What's so funny is that this is almost like the new sport you play to where you have no muscles built in that sport. You know what I mean? And so just even the way of thinking, it's like like when I first got a Wii and I found Wii boxing, it was on. Okay. I'm talking muscles came out of like they didn't exist and then they were there. And like I was sore from it. But
I can picture you just like a sweatband.
Oh, dude. I mean, what's his name? Matt, the bald one with the, I don't know. I could still remember images. Yeah. But what I was going to say was even just the way of thinking about creative financing.
Yeah.
It's like learning to ride a bike. Kind of it's the new sport you haven't done and you don't have any muscles built. And just watching these videos, I'm having this conversation for me, but for you guys watching the video and just being in the conversation, I feel like it would help train the brain at least in kind of get you associated with the terms and the language and the feeling and the movement.
Have to get the reps in.
Right.
The person that I was just talking, I can't disclose exactly who this was, but the person that I was just talking to, did you catch what I said to that person when they asked, right before we started this episode, somebody was saying, I think I want to get into creative financing as like my next move, blah, blah, blah. What should I do? Did you hear what I said? What my number one advice was? What you need to do immediately?
You're going to say it and I'm going to be like, oh yeah, I heard that.
Get on the phone and start talking to sellers. Get the reps in. Because that's the only way that you're going to feel comfortable having these conversations. The more comfortable you are, the more comfortable the seller is. The more times you talk about it, the more that the knowledge and like the words that you use just come out naturally. I can talk about a deed in lieu and make it sound like the simplest, easiest thing. If you right now, when I just told you about this, of what it is, if you went and tried to talk to a seller on the phone, you would overcomplicate the shit out of it.
Yeah, you're right.
You know what I mean? Because you're not comfortable enough with it to just be like, oh, it's the coolest thing. Like it's literally just a form to make sure that if I don't pay you, a third-party attorney files this at the courthouse and you get your house back. It's super simple. It's like the easiest thing in the world. You're going to be like, well, a bank uses this for foreclosure. You know what I mean? Because you're just not,
No, I get it.
And you're 100% right. It is muscles that you haven't used yet because you didn't even know that you needed them. So just get out there and start getting reps in with them.
Right.
Yeah.
And watch our videos and hopefully you'll bleed it on to you through the camera.
Absolutely. And honestly, these next ones, we are going to overload you with information. Watch, rewatch, watch, rewatch. Go to Pace Morby, Jerry Norton. Like there are people out there that are doing this on a very large scale that have a ton of resources available for you for free, completely for free. So just go out there and start digging into it.
I can say, this is still speaking to the viewer, I can say that after this first and second episode, every single time I see a for sale sign in a property or hear of someone selling something, my brain immediately goes, is it possible for subject to? What ways could this work? Like I'm already entering the conversation. So it could be a good thing for viewers just to broaden, the brain and how to
imagine if you said
buy things.
Oh, I wonder if it would be a good fit for any 8 of these things.
Right. Right.
How likely is it going to be that no 7 of these tools fit that scenario? Something's going to fit.
Well, that seems like that wraps up subject 2.
I think that's a good spot. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. I mean, that's a lot of information on one single tool, but like we said, we want to release all these tools. The podcast, the videos that we're putting out, we're not here to disseminate down and be like, this is good information, this is not. Our job right now is we are taking in a ton of information, living through a lot of things, implementing a lot of different things in our life specifically, and all the people involved in all these businesses and all that stuff. We just want to get the information out to you as fast as possible so that you guys can implement it in your own lives. So do your own research, start digging into this stuff a little bit more. And honestly, even send us a message or leave a comment or something of like, hey, I've started this. This is where I'm stuck now. Explain this a little bit more, and we'll jump on and do a quick video of it. But either way, I appreciate you guys just following all the stuff that we're putting out right now, going on this journey with us. And I hope you guys have enjoyed this and taken some nuggets out of it. And as always, get out there and make your last name mean something.